which is going to be a weekly bloodstock review, kind of looking at global bloodstock with a particular view on the numbers, some different analytical insights, and digging deeper into the data. So we're going to take a look at what's been happening in global bloodstock this week. We'll start with the Magic Millions Gold Coast yearling sale. Actually concluded back end of last week, but Buck 2 was kind of running into this week. Solid sale overall. Very positive showing from Animo with his first crop of yearlings being offered on the Gold Coast. We'll look ahead to the preparation for the 100th Karaka yearling sale at New Zealand Bloodstock, and then also look at some other aspects of global trade that's been going on in particularly some of the different online sales across Europe and the US this week. So overall, it was a very solid Magic Millions Gold Coast yearling sale. Magic Millions made, I think, the very sensible decision to condense the book somewhat. They had a bit of a rougher 2025, but average was up, median was very solid, clearance was up. So kind of from a catalogue composition perspective, what the sales house decided to do in terms of reducing total volume of yearlings on offer paid dividends. Looking at the sire performance by median, Extreme Choice statistically is the best sire in terms of stakes winner to runner returns in Australia, and the yearlings are still at a premium due to Newgate having to manage his book quite carefully due to kind of limited fertility, and that's something that they've managed for the last couple of years and will continue to do so. So I mean, he'll only, it looks like at the moment, ever have limited foal crops, but the ones that do come and the ones that you can get your hands on are generally very good. So buyers are happy to pay a premium for them. So Extreme Choice ran at a $638,000 Australian dollar median, with 8 yearlings sold through the ring. The Schnitzels also, they don't make them anymore. Unfortunately, he passed last year. Absolute elite champion sire in Australia the last 5 or 10 years, and buyers will pay a premium for them because it's one of the last chance to get a hold of them. So it's 600,000 medium, 29 yearlings sold there. Vinny continues to excel as an elite sire in Australia. Zoostar is now claiming and has claimed an elite champion status alongside Schnitzel and Vinny the last couple of years, and then continues to press on into that upper threshold. The Southern Hemisphere were keen on the Frankels. They sold very well. And Animo was the headline first season sire in terms of offerings there. Very strong sale. Yearlings very well received by the market. 415,000 Australian dollar. 442,000 Australian dollar median from the 30 yearlings sold through the ring. Very well received as a first season sire. Not quite as warmly received as Home Affairs last year, but very close and pretty spectacular overall. Wootton Bassett has cooled off a little bit. Very high profile last couple of years in Southern Hemisphere. Woderton would have made the stallion if he'd have probably been a nose longer, but the market seems to have cooled at the Southern Hemisphere on Wootton Bassett, despite the fact that sadly he also passed last year, so it's also some of the last opportunities to get your hands on Wootton Bassett progeny as well. Justify, interesting, maybe not super hot in Australia. The ones we rated, we thought they were absolutely wonderful horses. Don't know if that's just because people, Stormboy was spectacular earlier on and then seemed to kind of fade a little bit and then came up here and didn't do it and has kind of gone back down to Australia to stand in the Southern Hemisphere. But I think the Justifies a really good value overall. Home Affairs had that second season sire knocked down a little bit, but still sold really well. And the early 2-year-olds seem to be doing well in trials and looking like they're going to be promising on the track. Jacquinot was also really showing up well as a first crop sire. Much lower fee than Animo. I think Animo was standing at 121,000 Australian dollars. Jacano far less, and managed a median yearling sales price of $225,000 from 16 yearlings sold. So superb performance there. Looking at the vendors, I mean, Arrowfield were top by gross, followed by Coolmore and Newgate. Again, that's driven largely by volume of offering. Sedge & Ho, we think, are the finest vendor in the Southern Hemisphere. They had an excellent sale. Their median was top. They had a $400,000 median, followed by Yarraman Park, second on median, and 336 or 330, and then 330, and then Silverdale Farm at 300,000 Australian dollar median. Sorry, it's probably a bit small on the chart and you can't see it. What we also did is we looked into buyers or buying entities. Now, buyer data is always a nightmare to wade through at Bloodstock sales. So we look at where is like a certain named entity appearing in maybe multiple partnerships or multiple purchases. The two kind of supercharged stables, super powered stables in Australia, Kieran Mahar's stable and Chris Waller's stable were top of the buying bench. Kieran Mahar by a long way. So we recorded 14.6 million Australian dollars worth of spend that you could attribute back to Kieran Mahar Bloodstock directly, or with Kieran Mahar Bloodstock, or Kieran Mahar as a partner in a purchasing entity. So they're driving a lot of the growth from a Bloodstock side, but also a lot of the progression on the kind of equine physiology side and sports science, and also dominating on the track as well. So but they were by significant factor the most active buyer. Michael Friedman Racing also very active as well, 9.3 million Australian dollars worth of spend. James Harron with his Colt syndicates and also his filly syndicates that have started doing very well as well. Gay Watt, House Adrian Bott, Kestrel Thoroughbreds, which is Bruce Slade. They're there as they're actually there as two separate lines, but you could merge them as one because they buy together. 5.5 million Australian dollars worth of spend. MB Magnia and Tom Magnia were active on behalf of Coolmore, $5.3 million, and David Ellis was over the Tasman Sea and was very active on behalf of Tiakau Racing. As we look forward towards Karaka this weekend, also expect David Ellis to be the leading purchaser at Karaka, I would say, or at least one of the leading purchasers at Karaka. What we also do is we produce something called a profitability index, which looks at a couple of different factors to evaluate kind of commercial profitability or viability of stallions in the market. What we're really looking at there is how much on average and median do they make on top of stud fee. So what profit are they making on stud fee? What profit are they making on stud fee when you include keep as well? And what percentage of sell through of stock? Because what you want to do is you want to know if you've got a yearling, if you're a breeder, what's the chance that that yearling's going to sell? Like, are they going to sell? First of all, no good in not selling a lot, but the ones that do sell well. So you want high kind of clearance rate and sell-through rate, and then also a good return on investment in terms of stud fee, kind of upfront investment, and then keep up until the point of yearling sale. Animo topped their clearance or sell-through was 93.9%, and the average and medians were very strong at the average was 290. Oh, no, sorry, this is the net profit. So the net profit on top of stud fee plus keep was 294,000 per yearling Australian dollars, and the median net profit was 254 Australian dollars per yearling. So that was a spectacular reward for breeders that put their trust in Animo, put their trust in Darley as well. Interesting to track that as it progresses throughout the rest of the sales season, and then you can see a lot of the others. Schnitzel really rewarded breeders. Extreme Choice continues to reward breeders. Too Darn Hot is very, very solid and is one of the next, if not already, the elite sires in both the southern and northern hemispheres. Ollie Kirk's still continues to do well for breeders. Harry Angel, kind of in the mid-market, continues to do very well for breeders. Home Affairs continued to do well with the second crop of of yearlings, despite, as I said, this kind of second season syndrome drop off from year one. But you're making kind of 90,000 kind of Australian dollars net profit per yearling on home affairs progeny. And say, for example, we called out Jack and O before, you're making 84,000 Australian dollars net profit on Jack and O progeny there as well. So, but with a slightly less sell-through percent of only 68%. So that's why, like, the sell-through rate and the average net profit are the key things that we calculate there. I like this chart because it shows the visual distribution of the net profits. So what I like to do is I like to show the scale and look at, okay, how many yearlings were catalogued by that stallion? What was the distribution of net profits? Again, when you look at sales price, you take off stud fee, you take off keep. Where would this sit? I'm pretty harsh. Anything that doesn't achieve reserve in the ring, I record as a loss. And net it to zero, full loss. It's a bit harsh because that's like saying the horse doesn't have any residual value if it doesn't sell. Well, actually, the vendors decided not to sell it because they believe it's worth the reserve price. But for this exercise, that's how I handle it. I also, if there's a yearling that's catalogued and withdrawn, I count that as a loss as well, because in my view that's an asset that's been offered on the market. And often what you see is sometimes the stats are being managed, because if a yearling isn't getting many views, many visits, many inspections, many vets, then the vendor will take it out of the catalogue. That might be another reason, like get injured or something, and they might show up yet again at another yearling sale. But that's how I like to treat the data from this perspective. But you can see the curve there. You can see the distribution of all of the animal yearlings and their net profit per yearling for breeder. You can see Two Darn Hot in second, Snitzel, Hellbent, Vinny, Alabama Express still showing well for kind of mid-market breeders and mid-market purchasers. So that's the Magic Millions Gold Coast, and particularly a look on book one. So if we look forward to the 100th inaugural New Zealand Bloodstock Karaka yearling sales, so we're going across the Tasman. What we looked at earlier in the week, and I published an article on this, was just looking at some of the historic market dynamics and performance of the Karaka yearling sale. So we looked at book one, book two, book three. What you're generally looking at in terms of performance outcomes and returns per book. So historically, what we've seen, just over 4,500 yearlings. This is since 2015, I think it is, catalogued at Karaka with a stakes winners to offered ratio of 3.58%. So for every 100 yearlings you would see, you can expect 3.5 to be a stakes winner. 2.34 become a group winner, and 0.81 become a group one winner. Now that 0.81 is still really good, because the population baseline is, depending on country, normally 0.3 or 0.4. So basically, if you shop at Karaka book one, you've got twice as 2 or 2.5 times much of the chance as the rest of the baseline performance in the population of finding a group one winner, despite the fact that group one winners are incredibly rare, and that's why you'll only get, I don't know, 1 out of every 120 that you'll see will actually turn out to be a group one winner. And we looked at 37 group one winners in that time period. I'm going to show you the chart later on. We also looked at price brackets. What you can see is there's a clear correlation in distribution between kind of the upper price brackets and the higher outcome of getting a stakes winner. What I always say is, just because you spend $1 million or 400k or 500k doesn't mean that you're going to get a stakes winner. 7.7% of yearlings that were purchased through the sale for over 400,000. I think that's Australian dollars, because I convert everything back to odd. In the Southern Hemisphere became stakes winners. So just know that's your baseline expectation. 5.83 became group winners, and 1.94 became group one winners. What I always find interesting, and it's because of the distribution of kind of prices, but highest kind of bracket with yearlings offered is the 50 to 99k, or yearlings purchase is the 50 to 99k bracket, but that's also got the highest amount of group one winners in there. So basically, there's from 18.4% of the yearlings bought, you get 29.2% of the Group 1 winners. So like your Group 1 ratio or impact value is 1.59. What does that mean? It's probably just a load of statistics. What it means is that you can still find a load of Group 1 winners in that 50 to 99k bracket, or in the hundreds to 199k bracket. Like, they are there and they do exist. Of course, there's a broader proportion of horses that exist in that price bracket, so you have to wade through more, or the haystack is bigger. But you can pick your way through that haystack and find them. It always depends for me what your preference is. Like, if you just if money is no object and you want the highest probability of getting a stakes winner, spend over $1 million, and your baseline expectation is 15% of stakes winners to yearlings bought. If your objective is return on investment or best chance of stakes winner per dollar or per capita, then you should really be, depending on the country, shopping in the 50 to 100k bracket, the 100 to 200k bracket, because that's where, for turnover of capital, you have the best chance of returning a stakes winner or a group winner or a Group 1 winner per dollar. So it really depends kind of what your angle into the market is. Yeah, same thing, and that's actually what this chart is showing. That's showing, based on capital investment in those different price bands, how much would you have to turn over just across the entire market to return a stakes winner or to return a Group 1 winner. So, for example, if you only bought horses like in the 400k plus bracket, historically in this 10-year period, you'd get a Group 1 winner every 29.5 million worth of spend. If you're only turning over capital in this 50 to 99k bracket, you'd get a Group 1 winner every 7.65 million worth of spend. Again, that's purely a hypothetical calculation because it's not including training fees. It's just like a paper exercise to show the value of the outlay of capital and expected returns. When you do include training fees, and I've done it in a couple of other places, actually the 100 to 200k threshold is the sweet spot in terms of total cost of ownership. Because the reason being, because elite horses are so rare, there becomes a tipping point where it doesn't make sense to spend over a certain amount of money trying to find them, because your kind of cost outlay to returned expectation just starts to fall off the graph. So purely theoretically, it's better to turn over more money on more horses in that kind of middle market than it is to purely focus on the elite market. Certainly on some of the modeling and calculations that we've done. You can also see there the cost per stakes winner in terms of outlay and expected return as well. These are some of the Group 1 winners coming out of this sale since 2018 is actually. So I correct it's 2018, the stats. La Dorada, David Ellis. Velocious, Go Racing. Quintessa, David Ellis. Tokyo Tycoon, David Ellis. So basically just look what David Ellis and TR Carl are buying. R.A. James at Wellwood, very good orchestral prowess. It's been a decent hunting ground for Kieran Maher as well, last couple of years. You can see that. A couple of passed in Group 1 winners. Pinarello, $300,000 passed in. Gypsy Goddess, $20,000 passed in. Dart Destroyer, $30,000 passed in. David Ellis. So yeah, but if you look at the prices, like, they're not all kind of mental prices. Like, you can find good horses for certainly less than $200,000 here, particularly when the exchange rate between the Australian dollar and the New Zealand dollar is very favourable in terms of the Aussies at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of Karaka, but hope you like those market dynamics and just seeing on paper those historic Group 1 winners. Bit of a snapshot on global trade, rest of the world then. we took a look at what has been happening this week, and I know I talked about Magic Millions book 1, but actually book 2 was the one that was really this week. We have tracked this week 400 lots sold globally, and there was 12.46 million of US dollar worth of spend in the main sales in the main Bloodstock markets that we've monitored. There was 9.2 million Australian gross, 179 sold for 84% clearance in book 2 at Magic Millions. The Phasig tipped in January digital sale, there was 4.5 million US gross sold, 160 sold. Clearance rate there was 75%. The Arcana Online January sale, 866 euros gross, 8 sold from 13 offered. It's driven by a big Stallion sharing. Zarak, come on to that. The Tats Online January sale, 438,000 guineas gross into the market, 53 sold from 96 offered. So yeah, globally, big markets, Australia, Europe, US, 400 sold, 12.4 million US spend this week. There's the breakdown visually of the spend. Magic Millions, this all then transformed into USD. Magic Millions tops, and then the kind of digital and online sales. I think it's interesting, you just see that like the growth of the online sales. And I mean, if you stacked the 3 online sales together, and I know they're in totally different countries, but they're pretty much equal the book 2 of the Magic Millions sales. So you've got kind of the book 2 of premier prestige physical sale in Australia, and then you've got 3 online sales in January, kind of out of season in the Northern Hemisphere, still kind of equating on gross turnover. Found it a little bit interesting. A couple of pictures of the sales toppers there. So the sales topper at Magic Millions was Tagaloa filly, bought by Cape Shank Stud, 270,000 Australian dollars. Dresden Row hip number 1 was the top, 575,000 US dollars at Phasig. The 150th share in Zarak, bought by Ghislaine Bozo, for 505,000 euros. So you can work out from there kind of what Zarak is valued at now, and yeah, I think proven now as one of the elite stallions in Europe. And Leshtoshka, Capuchin's Bloodstock, biggest purchase in the Tats online sale at 60,000 guineas. Yeah, and then just a couple of metrics. The median, if you're looking in Australian dollars, 42.5k in book 2 with the 84% clearance. Dresden Row, Alisal, Sugar Rocket, Jack's My Brother, the highest purchases in the Phasig online sale, 160 horses bought there overall, with that 575,000 top price. And then the 150th share in Zarak. Olympic Story bought by Mandor International at the Arcana online sale as well. Latoshka Hot August Night bought for just over £52,500. A breeding right in Space Blues, interestingly bought by Sam Haggis of Herworth Bloodstock, lot 102, £33,600 in the Tats online sale as well. So yeah, that's what was happening in global Bloodstock this week. That was the first episode. I'll become more practiced and I get better, but hope you found it interesting, and see you the next time.